Question 7. What was the largest Greek number? The largest Greek number was a myriad, or 10,000. In the book of Revelation, the figure used to describe the number of angels (10,000 times 10,000 plus, or over 100 million angels). Now our professor, Dr. Ward Williams.
But let's proceed with the story. Malcolm Brubaker's helping me. I'm going to have him read the 22nd through the 24th verses. Luke 2.
When the time came for their purification according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. And to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons.
There are really 2 things here. One of them we'll not go into detail except just to show you the carefulness of the law and its value for its generation. One of the main purposes of the law was not to carry out religious purposes except as they pertain to health. And the priests in Old Testament times were also the health officers. If a person was healed of leprosy, it was the priests he had to convince that he was healed before he could join normal society. If there had been a plague in your house, you had to convince the priest that the house had been repaired and the infected part, sometimes involving mold on the wall, had been removed and the new plaster had been put there. And if the mold kept returning, you ultimately had to tear the house down. And the decision was made by the priests. A very interesting thing here is that after a child was born, to protect the health of the mother, that normal sexual relations were not to be carried out until a certain length of time had passed. A very sensible provision for the protection of the mother. And it's at the end of this time, at the end of some 42 days here, that they go up to Jerusalem. Probably if she'd been back in Nazareth, she wouldn't have gone. It would have been too far. But they have stayed in Bethlehem. She's not really ready to make a long journey, and so they go back up and they go into the temple and they make the offering, which means that this period of time required in Leviticus 12, 1 through 8 has passed. Furthermore, the child, which is the firstborn, originally was counted the Lord's, just as the first fruits of your field belong to God, the first fruits of the wife's womb belong to God. Later a provision was made to substitute the priests of the tribe of Levi in place of the firstborn. But you redeemed your firstborn by the sacrifice of a sheep. And a sheep is not a very valuable item in this pastoral economy. But nevertheless, it's beyond the means of some people. And if you didn't have the money to pay for a sheep for an offering, the law permitted you to take 2 pigeons to take the place. Now, this is a picture of this middle-aged or maybe elderly carpenter. His late teenage bride, who's now become the mother of this baby. What money they've had, they've spent on the journey. They come up to the temple, and the man who made the world is presented in the temple, and his foster father and his mother can afford 2 pigeons for a sacrifice. This is humility. Goes on to say that they offered this, and while they were there are two people of a great deal of interest to us. Verse 25 through verse 26.
Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and this man was righteous and devout, looking for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. And it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he should not see death before he had seen the Lord's Christ.
27 also.
And inspired by the Spirit, he came into the temple. And when the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him according to the custom of the law, he took him up in his arms and blessed God and said, Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace according to thy word. For mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and for glory to thy people Israel.
It's the practice, I'm sure most of you know, of the Roman Catholic Church to name their documents by the opening words. And also, in this case here, this poem, this Old Testament type psalm, which is stated here by Simeon, is known by its opening words in Latin, the Nunc Dimittis, now dismiss thy servant in peace. There's a little play of fancy that has interested me. Simeon had already been told that he was going to see the Messiah before he died. He knew that the Messiah was going to be a prophet like Moses, a king like David, a priest like Melchizedek. The Jews, of course, had a prohibition against making the likeness of anything in heaven and on earth. It's a little rough to be a Jewish artist for a good part of the world's history. But this was a prohibition, and the danger was that this ability to draw a picture, paint a picture, carve a statue, would be turned to religious purposes, so we'd be worshiping the image and not the reality. But let's lay that prohibition aside and give Simeon a permission he wouldn't really have had. And let's give him a stick of charcoal or a pencil. Let's give him a sheet of paper. And let's suppose it says he came in the Spirit. Let's say at that morning the Holy Spirit said to him, Simeon, you're an old man. You've known in the Spirit for a long time that you would see the Messiah before you died. Today is the day. Lay aside your Jewish scruples, the commandment of the law, and draw us a picture of this prophet, priest, and king that you're going to see today. I do not know what Simeon would have drawn, but I'm sure I know what he would not have drawn. He would not have drawn a 6-week-old baby in the arms of a Galilean peasant girl. Yet that's what he saw. The Messiah in the arms of a teenage mother. The Spirit let him know that this was what he was to expect. He said, now God, let me go. Let me go. I've seen what you promised. Let my soul depart in peace. I've lived long enough. I've seen the Messiah. That's all I want. But he had another message. He had a message for Mary. And in verse 34, he blessed Mary. And then he made a statement about the child and about Mary. Will you read that for us?
Behold, this child is set for the fall and rising of many in Israel, and for a sign that is spoken against, and a sword will pierce through your own soul also, that thoughts out of many hearts may be revealed.
We'll comment on what's put here in parentheses. A sword shall pierce thine own heart also. This, of course, is looking forward to the cross. Jesus is on the cross. All the disciples have fled except John. In fact, he fled and came back. Mary is there at the foot of the cross. This son, her firstborn, for whom she had so many hopes, whose teaching had stirred so many people,